Hello. Are you studying for your insurance exam, either the life and health or the personal lines, general lines, property casualty? Do you want to learn about the terms, legal purpose, offer and acceptance, consideration, competent parties? Well, we're going to handle that on this video. Be sure to stick around to the end where we'll take a look at a practice question to help you get ready to pass that test. Let's get started. As we talked about in some of our earlier videos, these basic concepts apply to all of the insurance tests, whether it's property casualty, general lines, personal lines, or life and health, which would mean life only, health only, or the combined life and health. So these concepts are really, really important. They will definitely show up in the test. You need to make sure you have these down in order to get ready to pass that test. Now, this is going to be a two-parter. Today, we're going to look at the terms, legal purpose, offer and acceptance, consideration, competent parties. We're also going to look at the other elements, and we will reference that right up there. Click on that video, and you can go to part 2. And part 2 will talk about the insurance terms, aleatory adhesion, unilateral, all of those. But let's handle the general terms and start out with talking about what is a contract. So what is a contract? A contract is an agreement that's enforceable by law. It's a way for two parties to bind themselves to an agreement. Make sure that they what? That they keep the promises that they've made. It's a way for two parties to bind themselves and make those promises legally enforceable. You can imagine, for example, if you had a rental property and you wanted to make sure that your tenants didn't move out in the middle of the night with your furniture or damage your property. If that was the case, then you would have what? Then you would have a contract, a lease, that would bind you to promises that you made to them, and of course bind them to promises that they made to you. But in order for those promises to be legally binding, those promises must be made in a contract that has 4 certain elements. These 4 elements are legal purpose, offer and acceptance, consideration, and competent parties. Now, these 4 elements have to be in place in all contracts. And as you know, an insurance policy is just a contract. It's a contract between the insurance company and the insured, or in a life and health policy, the policy owner, the insured, and the insurance company. And in order for that contract to be legally enforceable, it must also, like every other contract out there, have these 4 elements. Let's go through these 4 elements and find out what they mean. Now, you'll notice my acronym here, LOCA. Now, the reason I have that acronym there is I promise you guys, one of the questions you're going to get on the test is what I call the LOCA question. What does that mean? Well, the LOCA question would be a question on the test that says blankety blank accept, and you see 3 of these answers, and they replace a 4th one with something else. Typically, the things that are going to be in part 2, aleatory adhesion, unilateral, conditional, one of those items. That's a really common question on the test. Be sure that you take a look at my part 2 video and make sure you understand those terms as well. Now, when we do our class, what we do is we have our students repeat these 4 elements out loud: legal purpose, offer and acceptance, consideration, competent parties. L, of course, would stand for legal purpose. O stands for offer. C stands for consideration. C stands for competent parties. And A stands for acceptance. LOCA is just an acronym to help us remember these 4 elements. That way you can recognize them if you see them on a test, or at least if you see 3 of them on the test. Now let's talk about these elements one at a time. We're going to start with offer and acceptance. These terms, offer, acceptance, counteroffer, these are terms that we use all the time. For example, let's pretend you have a house for sale. Just to make up a number, let's say you have it on the market for $400,000, and somebody comes along and says, "Hey, I'll give you $380." They're making a what? They're making an offer. Now you could either what? Accept their offer, or you could come back with a counteroffer. These terms in the insurance world, though, work a little bit differently. Let's take a look at them in the insurance world. So we have offer and acceptance. Now, when I meet with a client, I'm going to meet with a client twice. The first appointment, I'm going to meet with them. We're going to give them this razzle-dazzle presentation. I'm going to get an application, send it up to the company for underwriting. they're going to issue the policy, and then I'm going to go back to the client and meet with them a second time and deliver the policy. If I didn't get the check on that first appointment, then obviously I've got to get a check on the what? I've got to get the check on the second appointment. There's got to be a check in there somewhere, wouldn't you agree? Now, let's pay attention to the check or the check for the premium. And we know that what? Offer and acceptance happens in that order. Whichever happens first is the offer. Whichever happens last is the acceptance. So if I get the check from the client on that first appointment, that check for the premium is the offer. Let's say the premium is $100 a month. It's like the client is saying, when they're writing that check for $100, I'm offering to buy this policy for $100 a month. Now, if the insurance company issues the policy, the insurance company is saying, yes, we'll sell you this policy for $100 a month. They're accepting that offer. However, sometimes the policy comes back with a different price or with different terms, and that's what we would call a counteroffer. A counteroffer would be where the policy comes back with a different price or different terms. So check on the first appointment is a what? That's an offer. But as I said, I don't always get the check on the first appointment, so maybe when I come back to deliver the policy on the second appointment, then I'm going to get the check there. So now things have flipped around. If I've gathered that application from the client and the insurance company issues the policy, that issuing of the policy is the offer. Now you might be saying, but Brian, what if the person fills out the application? Aren't they making an offer? No, they're not. Not if they don't have a check for the premium with that. What they're doing is they are inviting the insurance company to make an offer to them. So they fill out the application. The insurance company issues the policy. The issuing of the policy is the offer. Then I bring the policy to the client and they're going to write a check. And that check is now the acceptance. Premium on the first appointment, that's the offer. Premium on the last appointment, that's the acceptance. Everybody got that? Fantastic. Then we're going to go on to consideration. Now, consideration is very simple. On the test, consideration means payment of premium. Consideration is something of value, and both parties in a contract legally must give something of value. We will have another video on the provisions in the policy, and there we will talk about the insuring clause. The insuring clause is the insurance company's thing of value, but the thing that we give of value is that premium. The questions on the test are really, really simple because what? Consideration equals premium. If you see the word consideration in a question on the test, the correct answer is going to be something about premium. Then the next concept is competent parties. What is a competent party? A competent party is a party that has the legal capacity to sign the contract. Now, there are three parties that do not have that legal capacity. They are minors, mentally infirm, and under the influence. Now, if you see those three, that's a group of three, on the test very easily could be all the following except, and as we said, these three parties, minors, mentally infirm, and those under the influence, do not have the legal capacity to sign a contract. What they do normally on the test, as we already talked about, they'll say all the following except. In this case, typically the except is often a disabled or a handicapped person. Those people are legally competent. They're able to sign the contract. However, minors, mentally infirm, and under the influence are not able to. And then the last element here is legal purpose. And yes, a contract has to be for a legal purpose. You can't have a contract that's going to be enforced by the courts to commit a crime. Those are our four elements, LOCA. Now, this is part one. Make sure you look for part two, because once again, you're going to get those questions on the test, what I call the LOCA question, which will be three of these and one of the others. They'll say all the following except, or the other one will be three of those and one of these. Now, let's take a look and see what a question on the test might look like. L signs the application, but not a check. 2 weeks later, the agent delivers the policy and gets a check. What just happened? Well, what just happened is the acceptance. Remember, we talked about check on the first appointment, that's an offer. Check on the last appointment, that's the acceptance. Now, you might have said, well, Brian, why isn't it not both offer and acceptance? And here's why. Well, let's think about where a policy gets issued. Not when, but where. And the where would be at the what? At the company's headquarters. So unless our client lives at the company's headquarters, it couldn't be both offer and acceptance at the same time. Now notice how vague the question is. And this is how they word these questions on the state test. This is a question from the state test. So in that 2-week period of time, what happened? Well, I took the application as the agent. I sent that information up to the insurance company. They processed that, and then they sent me back a physical policy that I could deliver to the client. That's what happened during that 2-week period of time. So probably about a week ago, the insurance company issued the policy and then dropped it in the mail. That would be the offer. When I delivered the policy to the client, what just happened was the acceptance. Now, that being said, who cares? Because remember that what? Listen, I've been in this business for a very long time, and I've never, ever had a client ask me, which one is this? Is this the offer? Is this the acceptance when I've delivered a policy? It's never coming up, but you definitely need to know it for the test. So how do we answer the question? Well, once again, if we get a check on the first appointment, it's a what? It's an offer. If we get a check on the second appointment, it's the what? It's the acceptance. Now, remember I gave you the example about the counteroffer. Maybe I picked up the check from the client for $100. That was the offer. But the insurance company came back with a counteroffer. They said, no, because of your particular medical condition or whatever, for you, the premium is going to be $120. So when I go back and deliver the policy, I've got to get a what? I've got to get a check for another $20. And that check that I pick up on the last appointment for $20 is going to be the what? It's going to be the acceptance. The acceptance of what? The acceptance of the counteroffer. But it still holds with that rule I told you. Check on the first appointment is the offer. Check on the last appointment is the acceptance. Be sure to take a look at part 2 because that's going to be very important to understand this entire concept. So that wraps up that concept. You know, we've got lots more videos coming and lots more in our playlist there. So as you're working through this process to get yourself ready to pass that state test, be sure to check out those other videos to learn these key concepts that you're ready to go. As always, appreciate a like, appreciate a subscribe. If you want to turn on that notification bell, we're coming out with new videos all the time. And feel free to come check out mortonschools.com. We offer live classes and online classes in insurance licensing and securities licensing. And we cover the entire United States. So if you'd like to join us for one of our classes, check out our upcoming schedule, or we offer review classes. We also offer practice questions that you can use to get yourself ready for your state test. Please let us know what we can do to help you, and thank you very much for joining us for this short video.